Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Off-Grid Smart Home. Today I'm discussing the different options of smart home assistants and sort of guiding you through what factored into my decisions as to which smart home assistant I decided to use, or more specifically, which ones. As I'm sure most of you are aware, you've got three main smart home assistants. You've got the Amazon Smart Home Assistant, you have Google Home, and you have Apple HomeKit. Those are the three big ones. Samsung also have SmartThings, which some people do choose to use. And then lots of the other smart tech manufacturers also have really great apps that you can use for lots of things like automations. But I wouldn't personally use them as my main smart home assistant. Part of the challenge is when picking which smart home assistant you want is some smart tech works with Amazon, some works with Google, some works with Apple HomeKit, and you'll find that some work with either two or three of those. So it's really important that when you're making this decision, you pick one that's going to sort of give you access to all of the technology you want, but it's also going to be a really great interface to use on a day-to-day basis. Two important things to consider when we're looking at the interface that each smart home assistant provides, as well as sort of the interface on your phone in the app. We also have to factor in the voice assistant side of things. And there's definitely some pros and cons over sort of each one of these three different options that I'm going to cover now. Before I get into that though, I'm going to discuss what I had operating at our last house before we built and moved into our new off-grid home. Previously, I used Amazon's Alexa, and I chose that previously for a few reasons. At the time, certainly, and I really think it's still the case, they had access to sort of the biggest variety of smart tech to choose from. So I wasn't as limited with what smart tech I could use, as most of it worked with Amazon's smart home assistant. I also used Apple HomeKit a little bit because I do have an iPhone. However, it really wasn't sort of the main infrastructure behind my smart home. I will get onto more of the pros of the Amazon Smart Home Assistant, but before that, I want to sort of cover some of the challenges I had in my old home and why that sort of led me to a bit of a change in this new home. Firstly, I'm just going to say the Amazon app and the user interface just, in my mind, is below where it should be. It's not up to the standard it should be. And I find it kind of clunky, kind of finicky, and not great to use, especially in comparison to something like Apple HomeKit, which I think visually is really great. And easy to use. One of the biggest challenges we had in our old house is that I set up all of the smart technology and sort of, I pieced it together and had things working. But what my wife found really difficult was that, it wasn't all run through the Amazon app. The voice assistant worked fine for any routines or automations that we set up, but we actually had to rely on the individual smart tech apps quite often because the integration with the Amazon app just didn't exist or wasn't particularly reliable. So when I'm considering what we're going to use in our new house to really get the buy-in of the whole family, I want to make sure that there's a one-stop shop, one place that we can go to and control everything in the house. One thing I will say is that the voice assistant from Amazon was always pretty reliable and consistent, and we didn't have any major problems with that. So that's something I've definitely factored into my decision here. So now that we've moved in, the first thing you really have to get sorted is the Home Assistant choice. I've got those three options: Amazon, Google Home, and Apple HomeKit. And I've really ruled out Google Home. I don't have much experience with it. From what I've seen, it's actually pretty good. But just from having already used Amazon, having an iPhone, it just makes more sense to sort of rule that one out of the equation for now. Although I will touch on some Google and Google Nest technology that I do really like. So as I mentioned, the user interface is a really important factor into my decision here. And the Apple Home app is visually very attractive. It's easy to use, and it, in theory, can be a one-stop shop where the whole family can go to it if you want to turn on the lights, or lock a front door, or look at your cameras. The only problem with the Apple Home sort of world is it is sort of limited as to the different companies that work with Apple Home, and you have a bit of a limited choice over which smart tech you can implement. That said, with the user interface and getting the buy-in from the family being such a big, important part of this decision, I have decided to utilize Apple Home as my go-to smart home assistant. But I'm definitely not ruling out the others. I still have some old Amazon smart home devices. So this is, I think, a second generation Echo Dot. I have an Echo, I have another Echo Dot. And more importantly, I'm actually a big fan of the Sonos sound system, which is integrated with the Amazon voice assistant. And I definitely don't want to lose that functionality. There's too much technology that I already own that I don't want to use. As I already mentioned, the Amazon voice assistant is very good, very reliable. I find I get some of the best answers if I ask a question from the Amazon voice assistant compared to if I use Siri on my iPhone. So what I'm actually getting at is I'm not picking just one of them. I'm going to be using, or attempting to use, we'll see how it works out, Apple and Apple HomeKit as our interface for sort of on our devices, on our phones. And then I'm still going to be using the Amazon voice assistant sort of in conjunction with that. I don't think you have to be as limited as picking just one. As well as the Apple app being fantastic on the iPhone itself or the iPad, I also really like the Apple TV. So I have a brand new Samsung frame, and instead of using the Samsung user interface, I actually have decided to use an Apple TV. Now, there's a few reasons for that. The interface is really nice, really attractive. It has all the apps I want to use. We don't have cable here, so I don't need to sort of utilize that side of the TV. So it's a really nice place to go and you access all the apps, streaming services you want. And it also acts as a home hub. So the Apple TV is a hub, and that's what can talk to all of the devices in the house if you're not physically here. An added very nice feature is that while you're watching TV, you can actually have notifications pop up from some of your smart home devices. For example, you'll see here that my front door has been locked. Equally, it will notify if any of the other doors are locked or unlocked. And if one of your cameras notices motion or activity, it will actually pop up with a screenshot, and you can choose to go in and look at that further if you like. So that's a really nice added function that I like, which is much more integrated sort of than any other system that I know of. So while the limited choice of devices is concerning, there are more and more great manufacturers that are releasing products that do work with Apple HomeKit natively. So that's fantastic. Now, I mentioned natively there, and that's really important. Those are the ones that are sort of designed to work with it, and Apple have authorized to work with Apple HomeKit. Moving forward, though, I know there are some devices that I'll want to use that don't work with Apple HomeKit. For example, I already have a Nest camera just from our old house that I do want to continue using because I have it. Another one is I'm looking to choose my new smart thermostat, and the Google Nest thermostat is in the running. And that obviously could bring up a problem, but that's what now it's worth mentioning that there are some third-party softwares that help integrate into Apple HomeKit. The two main ones are Homebridge and Home Assistant. So I am looking at how I could potentially implement one of those to help integrate devices that don't natively work with Apple HomeKit into the system. And I will cover that in another episode once I've made that decision, and I'll talk you through why, and we'll see how it works. As well as those third-party softwares that do help integrate other technology into the Apple ecosystem, Matter is hopefully coming down the line. This is a technology alliance that brings sort of integration between the different brands. And in theory, what it will allow is Apple, Google, Amazon devices to work with each other and be visible within the same ecosystem. And it would allow sort of other devices that don't currently work with Apple HomeKit or don't currently work with Google Home to potentially do that. So fingers crossed, Matter devices will start getting released this year. They have a stamp with the Matter logo on it, and that will really bring everything together. So while I am not committing 100% to using Apple or Amazon or Google, it's also because down the line, I think there really is a reality where they can all integrate together and work with each other. And I'm kind of banking on that as well. My decision has been to not just pick one smart home assistant, but to use two. I think I'm getting the best of both worlds here. I'm getting the great user interface of Apple Home and HomeKit, but I also get the sort of the best voice assistant in Amazon. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opinions out there. Let me know what you think. Have I made the right decision, or do you think I could do better? It's not too late to maybe make a change. I'm going to factor in hopefully using Homebridge or Home Assistant to help really sort of allow other devices to get brought into the Apple HomeKit ecosystem. And then beyond that, I'm really hoping that Matter technology starts getting released and launched later this year. That will really tie everything together, and that will give everyone the ability to pick the best technology and the best hardware out there to make having a smart home smooth. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button, help me out. And help me grow this channel by clicking subscribe and sharing with your friends if you think anyone would be interested. Next episode, I'm going to start looking into our batteries and solar system and how we're going to continue to grow that and develop that. So if that's interesting, stay tuned for the next video. And then we're going to get into some smart tech reviews after that. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.